To crochet this bandana, we really only need a few basic materials. For my yarn, I'm going to be using the Jody Long Lino Moda. Now, this is labeled as a number 3 DK. In my personal opinion, it's a little bit more lightweight, kind of like a number 2 sport weight. But what I'm going to be doing is double stranding with my yarn. So I'm going to use these two lovely shades here, and I'm always going to have 2 of these strands wrapped around my hook at all times so that we end up with a little bit more of a number 4 worsted weight thickness. Now this yarn in particular is a blend of linen and cotton, so it's 50% cotton and 50% linen, which is going to give it a little bit more of like a rustic feel. Now for our hook size, I'm going to be using a 6.5mm crochet hook. This is kind of sized up a little bit to help give it a little bit more drape, because again, the linen cotton blend might be a little bit stiff. So by using a larger hook size like a 6.5, it's going to help it to have a little bit more movement to it. And other than that, basic materials such as a darn needle just to weave in a few of the ends towards the very end of the project, and of course some scissors to help cut our yarn. And with all of that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the tutorial. So I've got my yarn ready, and as I mentioned, we are going to double strand this, and I need to begin with a magic circle. So I have my tail end right here, and all I'm going to do is create a little bit of a loop just like that. So I've crossed over my tail, and we have kind of like a little fish, a goldfish, or like a little X motif right there. I'm going to pinch right here on top of that X so that my yarn doesn't move anywhere. I'm going to grab my 6.5, reach into the magic circle, and pull up the working yarn. And then go ahead and grab onto that tail like that. So as you can see, I have my tail end just kind of dangling over here, and I have my working yarn pulled up through the center of that magic circle. And from here, I'm just going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is going to count as the very first double crochet in the magic circle. Now to go ahead and finish out row 1, I need to add 4 more double crochet all into the center right here. So what I'm going to do is yarn over, and I'm going to reach into the center, working over the tail and the circle itself. So just go right through the center and pull up a loop, and then from here yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And again, yarn over, we're gonna add another double. So we have 3. Here is the 4th double crochet. And for the last and final, this is the 5th double crochet. Now at this point, I can go ahead and grab on these little tail ends right here and gently close up that magic circle so it's nice and tight, and it almost kind of brings us to a point. Now for row 2, I'm going to chain 3 and turn my work. So 1, 2, and 3. And for every single row in this pattern, we will always work an increase into the very first stitch in the row as well as the very last stitch. So because this chain of 3 counts as the very first double crochet, I'm going to yarn over and go right back into that very first stitch and work another double, so that we have an increase here right at the beginning of the row. And now looking at my next stitch, I can add 1 double crochet across the row, yarn over, looking for the next double, work 1 double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, insert, and work a double. And now that we have 1 last double crochet in the row, I'm going to work another increase here into that very last stitch. And to make it really easy on ourselves, all I'm going to do is go underneath where the chain of 3 is. If you prefer, you can pick up the 2 top loops at the very top of that chain 3. So I'm just going to choose to work directly underneath that chain 3 and pick up that space like this, and then work 1 double crochet, and then once more for the increase. And at this point, we can go ahead and chain 3 and turn our work. 1, 2, 3. Now for row 3, I'm going to start implementing a mesh stitch. So what I'm going to do directly after this chain of 3, again, we do need to increase into that very first stitch. So yarn over, go into that very first stitch space and work a double crochet. And next what I'm going to do is chain 1 and chain pretty loosely. We don't want the chains to be too tight. So we've chained one, we're going to skip one, and then double crochet into the next available stitch. So now we have a little bit of a peekaboo mesh pattern right there. And again, chain one pretty loosely and skip one, double crochet in the next. So now we have our second mesh portion like that. And then to go ahead and finish out the row, chain one again, and just a reminder, keep it nice and loose, skip one, double crochet into the very last stitch in the row. So it's going to be this chain of 3. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to go underneath the chain of 3 and pick up that space like this to create our third mesh portion just like that. And once more, we do need an increase here at the very last stitch in the row. So I'm going to yarn over, go directly into that chain 3 space again, and double crochet. So here is what row 3 is looking like. And at this point, we can go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work so we can begin working on row 4. Now for the rest of this pattern, we are going to alternate between 2 rows of solid double crochet and then a 3rd row of mesh. So as you can see here for row 4, we're going to go back to our solid double crochets. I'm going to yarn over and place another double directly into that first stitch so that we have our increase at the start of the row. And then I'm going to yarn over, look for the next available stitch, and work a double crochet. And then here at the chain 1 space, I'm just going to work a double underneath the chain space. So picking up that stitch and working a double. And then our next stitch is a solid double, so we can just go ahead and stack that. And again, we're just working with 1 double crochet into every stitch across the row. And again, here at the chain spaces, I'm just going to go underneath into the open space, pick that up and finish the double, and then 1 double underneath the chain space, and then into the double. And then now here at this very last stitch in the row, which is the chain of 3, I'm going to go underneath and pick up the chain of 3, and we're going to work our increase. So that is 1 double, then go right back and add your second. So if I kind of set my work down a little bit here, you can see that it's slowly starting to take that triangular shape, and as we continue to add on more rows, it's only going to go wider and wider. Now that we kind of have the basis down, I'm going to move a little bit quicker here. So into that very first stitch, I'll add my increase, and we have 2 double coming out. And then now for row 5, I'm just going to work 1 double across the entire row. And now here at this last and final stitch, we'll work our increase. So 1 double, and then go right back and add your second double. And now here for row 6, we can go back to our mesh pattern. So to go ahead and show you guys how to work that, I'm going to chain 3 and turn our work. And here at the start of row 6, I'm going to work that increase into the very first stitch. And from here I can chain 1 loosely and skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. So just skipping that 1 to accommodate for the chain 1. And now from here I can chain 1 again and skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. And once more, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next. And just repeat this across the entire row. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. And here at the very end of your row, you should still have 2 double crochet left. So once more, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the last stitch, which is the chain of 3. And then to finish out the row, always work your increase into that very last stitch. And now we have another beautiful row of mesh stitches. I would suggest to crochet a total of either 15 or 16 rows. Ending on the 15th row means you're going to stop on a mesh row, but if you don't want this to be the very last row that's like closest to your forehead or your eye line, then I would suggest to crochet one last row, the 16th row, of solid double crochet. So I've just finished up here at the very end of my 16th row. So if I can go ahead and give you guys some quick measurements. From the tip of the bandana to my 16th row, I have exactly 9.5 inches. And measuring on the longer portion of the bandana, I have 12 inches in total right there. And the last few steps of this bandana are to create some tie straps here at the corner, as well as adding a little bit of a trim or kind of like a border around the majority of this bandana. So I'm gonna start off here where I have left off. I've just reinserted my hook after this very last stitch, and from here I'm gonna create a chain, but the amount of chains is completely up to you. So all I'm gonna do here is just chain, chain, and chain. And my tip is to keep this chain also nice and loose. We don't want it to be too difficult to work into. And I'm also going to keep track of how many chains I have right here so that I can equally match this on the other side. 29 and 30. So here is my chain of 30. And if I can zoom you guys out real quick and give you just a rough measurement, my chain of 30 is about almost 11 inches long. So I'm just gonna leave it here. I think it's better to have longer than shorter. And now that I've got my chain worked, what I'm gonna do is work slip stitches all the way back down the chain, and I'm gonna work my slip stitch into the back bumps. So what I'm gonna do is skip that very first stitch and work a slip stitch into the second. I'm gonna turn it over and make sure that I'm grabbing these back bumps. This is just a preference of mine that I really like. So there's my first slip stitch. And again, looking at the next stitch available, I can insert and slip stitch, insert and slip stitch. So I'm going to finish up the very last few stitches here. And again, I'm just slip stitching up the side. This is my very last chain space. And now at this point, I'm also going to slip stitch into this very first stitch in the row. I'm going to go like underneath into this space right here, just to help connect the tie to the bandana and keep it nice and secure right here at the corner. So now that we have this one tie strap done, I'm going to move into adding a little bit of that trim. If you would prefer not to add the trim or the border, you can completely skip this step. Just cut your yarn off right here, weave in your end, and then repeat that same process of the tie strap over here. But for those that are interested in adding the trim, I can walk you through this right now. What we're going to be doing is working with single crochets and chain spaces to add kind of like a picot stitch where there's a little bit of like a bump or a ridge. So what we're going to do after this slip stitch, I'm just going to look for the next place where I can work a single crochet. Traditionally, having double crochets along these rows, we can fit 2 single across every 1 double. So that's kind of just like a safe rule of thumb. But going into the stitch, I'm working a single right here, and then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then into the next stitch right here, I can place a single, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to work another single right here. And then looking at this next row of double crochet right here, I can chain 2 and work a single right here, just wherever looks fitting. And then after my single, chain 2, I'm going to work another single right here. So this is going to count as like the second single along that double crochet, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then just repeat this all the way down until we hit the tip of our bandana. Chain 2, and now at this point you can see here is that very tiny magic circle that we started off with. I did make sure to kind of pull up on this a little bit so there is room for us to work into this stitch. And after this chain 2, I'm going to go directly into that magic circle, single crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to single crochet again into that magic circle, chain 2, and now we can begin working up the other side of this bandana. You can go ahead and pick up along this next side of double crochet, single crochet, chain 2, looking at this next part, I can pick up like right here, single crochet, chain 2, and then just continue with this process along this other side. And now I just have essentially one more stitch to work. So after my chain of 2, I'm going to go into this very first stitch and single crochet. And from here I can go ahead and repeat that tie process that we started on the other side. So if you remember, I did create a chain of 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 30. And then I can go ahead and slip stitch back down my chain. So I'm just going to turn my work over so I can find those back bumps. I'm going to skip the first chain for my loop, which is kind of hard to see because it's getting twisted. But I'm going to pick up the second loop and slip stitch. And then the next loop, slip stitch. And as I'm working these slip stitches, you might notice that your work starts to curl a little bit, but all you really need to do is kind of stretch on it a little bit. Once you wear this bandana once and you tie this around your head, you'll see that it really just kind of straightens out on its own. And now that I'm here back at the start of the chain, I'm just gonna work that last slip stitch. And then once more, going right back into this like very first section right here. So right here is that single, and I'm just gonna go right into this little corner, insert, and slip stitch the row shut. So now that's nice and secure right there. And just to add a little bit more security, I'm gonna go into the next spot right here and slip stitch one more time. And go ahead, grab my scissors, cut off my yarn, and at this point I can just pull, oh my goodness, I can just pull the yarn through and tie off a knot. And now that all of the work is done using a darn needle, don't forget to go back and weave this end in. You can honestly weave it up through your tie strap or even down along the trim right here. I think this would be a really good area to kind of hide your work. But other than that, this bandana is done and ready to be worn and sported for the rest of summer. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this quick and easy tutorial, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.